It might surprise you, but some of the strongest medicines on earth don't come in a pill bottle. They're sitting right there in your spice rack, looking innocent, while quietly fighting sugar spikes and soothing tired joints. Imagine that. Something as small as a pinch of powder holding the power to bring you comfort after 60. When I first heard that cinnamon could work better than some fancy supplements, I shook my head in disbelief. But once I tried adding it to my oatmeal, I felt like I'd stumbled on an old secret my grandmother forgot to tell me. Back in the day, folks leaned on spices not just to flavor their food, but to heal. My mother would simmer cloves in hot tea whenever my father's knees started acting up, and I used to think it was just one of her little country remedies. Now, science is finally catching up, showing us that these forgotten treasures can balance blood sugar, ease inflammation, and even help us stay on our feet a little longer. Isn't it funny how the answers we've been searching for were right under our noses the whole time? So today, we're counting down 7 healing spices that flush sugar from your blood and rejuvenate your joints. Each one carries a story, a taste, and a blessing for those of us still trying to stay strong and steady in our golden years. If you enjoy discoveries like this, I'd be grateful if you gave this video a thumbs up and shared it with a friend who might need it. And tell me in the comments, which spice do you use most in your kitchen? And have you ever noticed it helping your health? I can't wait to hear your stories. Number 7, cloves. The smell of cloves always takes me back to Christmas at my grandmother's house. She'd stick them into oranges and hang them by the window, filling the room with that warm, spicy fragrance. I never thought much about it as a child, except that it made the house smell like love. Years later, when I brewed clove tea for my aching joints, that same aroma rose up from the cup like a hug from the past, and I realized my grandmother had known more about healing than I ever gave her credit for. Funny thing is, cloves aren't just for holiday memories. These tiny buds are packed with compounds that help regulate blood sugar. I started sprinkling just a little into my morning coffee, and after a while I noticed I didn't get those afternoon crashes anymore. It wasn't magic. It was just nature doing what it was designed to do. Like an old farm tool, simple but reliable, cloves quietly work in the background, steadying the body without much fanfare. There's a bit of history here, too. Sailors once carried cloves on long voyages, not only to keep food fresh, but to protect themselves from disease. Back then, nobody could explain why it worked, but they trusted it. Today, we know cloves are loaded with antioxidants that fight inflammation, the same kind that makes our knees swell or our fingers stiff in the morning. It makes me smile, thinking about those sailors chewing on cloves the same way I do when my arthritis tries to slow me down. These days, I keep a little jar right by the stove. Sometimes I'll drop a clove or 2 into a pot of stew. Other times I'll just brew them into tea with honey. The taste is strong, yes, but it carries a comfort I can't quite put into words. It feels like medicine and memory stirred together in one cup. If I skip it for a week, I notice the difference in my energy and the way my joints complain after gardening. Small habit, big blessing. Thank the Lord for simple things like this. Tiny brown buds no bigger than a fingernail, yet powerful enough to ease pain and steady blood sugar. I never thought something so humble could make such a difference in the second half of my life. Sometimes I laugh at myself for spending money on fancy supplements when the answer was sitting in the spice aisle all along. Number 6, cayenne pepper. If cayenne pepper were a person, I'd say he's the cowboy of the spice world. Fiery, bold, and never afraid to stir things up. Just a pinch of it in chili or stew, and suddenly the whole dish wakes up. My son once joked that I was trying to burn my arthritis away when he saw me adding cayenne to my soup. But truth be told, that warmth spreading through my body feels like a little army chasing away stiffness in my joints, and I welcome it every time. I remember when I was younger, living down south, hot peppers were everywhere, on the table, in the garden, even in little jars soaking in vinegar. Folks swore they kept the blood moving, and I used to laugh at that old saying. Now that I'm older, I see the wisdom behind it. Cayenne pepper helps with circulation, keeps blood sugar more stable, and seems to put a spark back in my step when I've been dragging. It's not just heat, it's life waking up in the body. Back in history, Native Americans used cayenne as both food and medicine. They believed it gave strength and endurance, especially during long winters. I like to imagine some hunter, centuries ago, rubbing cayenne into his food before heading out into the snow, knowing it would keep him strong. That same fiery spirit now sits in my kitchen, ready to turn an ordinary egg breakfast into something that keeps me moving through the day. These days, I'll sprinkle a touch of cayenne on roasted potatoes, or even add a dash to hot chocolate. Yes, hot chocolate. My granddaughter thought I was crazy until she tried it and realized how the spice warms you from the inside out. It's not about drowning your food in heat. It's about finding that sweet balance where the warmth does its work without overwhelming the taste. That balance feels like a lesson for life itself, don't you think? I thank God for cayenne. Not because it makes my food exciting, but because it reminds me I'm still alive, still able to enjoy the fire flavor and the comfort of movement. Sometimes I think, who would have thought that a little red powder could help me tie my shoes without groaning? Life has a way of surprising us, and cayenne pepper is one of those surprises that keeps me grateful every single day. Number 5, ginger. The first time I truly noticed ginger's power was on a stormy fishing trip years ago. The waves tossed us around like rag dolls, and I thought my stomach would never forgive me. A buddy pulled out a small piece of ginger root, told me to chew it, and within minutes the nausea faded. That fiery, slightly sweet taste stayed with me, and so did the lesson. Sometimes the simplest remedies are the most faithful companions. These days, ginger has become my morning ritual. I slice a piece of the root and drop it in hot water with lemon. As the steam rises, I breathe in that spicy fragrance and feel my body wake up gently. Over time, I noticed something else. The swelling in my knuckles wasn't as bad, and the aches in my knees seemed less sharp. Science tells us ginger calms inflammation and even helps balance blood sugar, but I don't need a textbook to tell me what my body already knows. It's amazing how cultures across the world have leaned on ginger for centuries. In Asia, it's seen as a symbol of vitality and warmth, used not only in cooking but in healing teas and tonics. In old American kitchens, ginger snaps and gingerbread weren't just treats. They carried that hidden blessing of health. It makes me smile to think our ancestors probably felt the same gentle relief that I do when sipping my tea. In the kitchen, ginger is as versatile as an old pocket knife. I'll grate it into stir-fries, stir into soup, or even add a touch of powdered ginger to baked apples. My granddaughter laughs when she sees me with ginger candies in my pocket, but I tell her, they aren't just sweets, honey, they're medicine wrapped in sugar. Funny how such a small habit makes me feel cared for throughout the day. Every time I use ginger, I thank the Lord for giving us roots that heal more than hunger. It's not flashy, not expensive, and not hidden in some distant land. It's right there in the produce section, waiting to serve. I used to overlook it, passing by without a thought. Now, I see it as one of God's quiet gifts, reminding me that healing often comes in the most ordinary packages. Number 4, turmeric. The golden color of turmeric always reminds me of sunrise over the fields back home. That deep yellow, almost glowing, feels like hope in powder form. I remember the first time I stirred a spoonful into warm milk. My grandmother used to call it golden milk. At first, I thought it tasted strange, earthy and bold, but the warmth it left behind in my body, almost like a gentle fire calming every joint, made me believe there was something sacred about that spice. When I began using turmeric more regularly, I noticed my mornings weren't as stiff. The creaks in my knees softened, and I could bend easier without wincing. Some folks say turmeric helps the body fight inflammation, like a soldier standing guard, and I believe that. It also plays a role in keeping blood sugar steady, which is a blessing for those of us who felt that midday crash after a sweet breakfast. One simple spoonful in soup or rice, and I feel like I'm giving my body armor against the aches of age. Historically, turmeric has been treasured for thousands of years in India. They use it not only as a spice, but as a healing paste, rubbing it on wounds and even on the skin to bring out a healthy glow. It fascinates me how people, long before science, trusted what they saw and felt. They knew this humble root carried strength, and their traditions carried it all the way to my little kitchen here in America. Nowadays, I'll toss turmeric into scrambled eggs, stir into chicken broth, or even add it to roasted vegetables. My wife laughs when I end up with yellow stains on my cutting board, but I just call it the mark of health. Sometimes I even mix it with black pepper to boost its power, a little trick I picked up from reading about traditional cooking. It's a small thing, but it feels like I'm letting my food become medicine, just the way God intended. I can't help but feel grateful every time I see that golden color swirl into my meals. It's like a daily reminder that even after 60, life can still be bright and full of energy. Turmeric isn't a miracle, but it's close enough for me, because every step I take with less pain feels like a miracle in itself. Number 3, cinnamon. The smell of cinnamon rolls baking in the oven could wake me from the deepest sleep. That sweet, warm fragrance filled our home every Sunday morning when my mother baked for the whole family. Back then, I only thought of it as a treat, something that made life sweeter. Little did I know that same spice would become one of my closest allies in keeping my blood sugar steady and my joints less cranky as the years rolled on. Some years back, I began sprinkling cinnamon on my oatmeal instead of sugar. At first, it was just to cut down on sweets, but over time I realized I didn't get as tired mid-morning. My doctor later smiled and told me cinnamon can help the body handle sugar more gently, slowing those spikes and crashes that wear us down. It was one of those simple swaps that didn't feel like a sacrifice. It felt like finding an old friend who still takes care of you. Cinnamon has quite a history, too. In ancient times, it was considered more precious than gold, carried across deserts and oceans by traders who risked everything just to bring it to distant lands. That always amazes me. Here I am today, picking up a jar of it at the grocery store for a few dollars, while centuries ago kings and queens guarded it like treasure. There's something humbling about that, as if God tucked healing into something so common we forget how valuable it really is. These days, I like to use cinnamon in all sorts of ways. A dash in my morning coffee, a sprinkle over baked apples, even stirred into chili for a little surprise. My grandchildren sometimes ask why I ruin their hot cocoa with cinnamon until they take a sip and realize it tastes like Christmas in a cup. I laugh every time, because little do they know that same spice is working quietly in the background, easing inflammation and keeping Grandpa's sugar in check. I often thank the Lord for cinnamon, because it feels like He gave us sweetness without guilt, warmth without harm, and healing without cost. Every time I breathe in its fragrance, I feel grounded, comforted, and blessed to still enjoy life's simple pleasures. Sometimes I wonder what other treasures are hiding right in front of us, waiting to be rediscovered. Number 2, garlic. The sizzle of garlic hitting a hot pan is one of those sounds that makes a kitchen feel alive. That sharp, rich aroma rising with the steam always reminds me of Sunday dinners, when my wife would roast chicken with cloves of garlic tucked under the skin. We didn't know it then, but we were feeding our bodies more than just flavor. We were giving them strength. Garlic has a way of making food memorable, but also making the body a little tougher against life's wear and tear. When I started adding garlic more often, I noticed something surprising. My blood pressure seemed steadier, and the swelling in my joints didn't nag me quite as much. Some folks say garlic thins the blood, helps balance sugar, and fights inflammation like a quiet soldier working in the background. I can't prove all the science, but I can tell you this. On days I skip it, I feel the difference in my energy. It's like my body misses its daily shield. Garlic has been treasured for thousands of years. Ancient Egyptians used it to fuel workers building the pyramids, believing it gave them endurance. Soldiers in old wars chewed it before battle for courage and strength. Isn't it something that the same little bulb I chop in my kitchen today was once seen as the food of warriors? I smile every time I think of that. Me, an old man with achy knees, carrying the same strength in my stew as they carried on the battlefield. These days, I roast whole bulbs until the cloves turn sweet and buttery, then spread them on bread like butter. Sometimes I mince garlic into salad dressings or simmer it slowly in soups. My grandkids scrunch their noses at the strong smell, but I tell them, one day you'll thank me when your joints don't hurt so bad. Garlic has a way of making even the simplest meals feel like they're doing double duty, filling the belly and healing the body. I often pause to give thanks for garlic, because it reminds me of how God hides power in small, humble places. Just a clove or two, and I feel lighter, stronger, more resilient. Who would have thought that something so ordinary, sitting in every grocery store bin, could carry such extraordinary blessings? Maybe that's the beauty of it. It doesn't shout, it just works quietly like grace in our daily lives. Number 1, black pepper. There's something comforting about the simple sound of a pepper grinder turning over a hot plate of food. That sharp, earthy smell rising up brings me right back to my father's table. He never sat down to eat without twisting black pepper over his plate, no matter if it was eggs, soup, or even cornbread. At the time, I thought it was just a quirk of his. Now I understand he was giving his body more than flavor. He was giving it a touch of healing. Black pepper may be the most ordinary spice in the world, but it carries extraordinary strength. It wakes up digestion, helps the body absorb nutrients, and even makes other spices, like turmeric, work harder. I started noticing that when I added black pepper to my meals, the swelling in my joints seemed calmer and my stomach felt lighter after eating. It wasn't dramatic, but it was steady like a faithful friend always showing up when needed. History has its say here too. Black pepper was once called black gold, traded like treasure across continents. Wars were fought over it, and merchants grew rich from its value. Imagine that the same little grains I sprinkle on mashed potatoes were once guarded, as if they were jewels. It makes me think about how easily we overlook the simple gifts God puts in front of us, right there in our kitchen shakers. In my own cooking, I've come to lean on black pepper the way some folks lean on salt, a little on roasted vegetables, a twist over fresh tomatoes, even a sprinkle on fruit like strawberries. It adds a spark that makes the food feel alive. My grandson once wrinkled his nose when he saw me grind pepper over watermelon, but after one bite, he was hooked. Sometimes, breaking old habits in the kitchen opens the door to new blessings for the body. When I think of black pepper, I think of faithfulness. It's always there, always ready, never fancy, never expensive, yet always adding something vital. I thank the Lord for that reminder that healing doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes it's as close as the pepper grinder sitting on the table, waiting to turn an ordinary meal into both nourishment and medicine. Looking back at these 7 humble spices, it's almost unbelievable how much healing power sits quietly in our kitchens. They aren't dressed in fancy labels or tucked away in expensive bottles, yet they work with our bodies in ways science is only beginning to catch up with. From the fiery spark of cayenne to the gentle sweetness of cinnamon, each one feels like a small miracle that God tucked into the earth for us to discover. Sometimes I wonder if part of aging gracefully is simply paying attention to the blessings that were always around us. I often think about how my younger self never cared much for these things. I chased after quick fixes and ignored the wisdom that was already in my family's recipes and traditions. Now, after 60, I see it more clearly. Health isn't always about doing something big or dramatic. Sometimes it's in the little pinches and sprinkles, the tea steeping on the stove, the smells that take us back to childhood. That realization has brought me more peace than any expensive pill ever could. Of course, I'm no doctor, and I'd never tell anyone to change their diet without first talking to a professional. These spices are gifts, yes, but we all have different bodies, different needs, and sometimes different challenges. A trusted doctor can help make sure these changes work for you, not against you. I like to think of it this way. God gave us both wisdom and science, and the two work best together when we use them hand in hand. The beautiful part is, it's never too late to start. Maybe you'll add a dash of ginger to your tea tomorrow morning, or sprinkle cinnamon on your oatmeal instead of sugar. Maybe you'll rediscover garlic in your stew, or learn to love that golden touch of turmeric. Each small choice can add up to a life with less pain, steadier energy, and more joy in the little things. We may not turn back the clock, but we can certainly make the time we have feel richer and lighter. So I'll leave you with this. May your meals bring both comfort and healing. May your joints move a little easier, and may your spirit stay strong through every season. If this message touched you, I'd be grateful if you shared it with someone who might need encouragement today. And tell me in the comments, which spice are you most excited to try, or which one has already been part of your story? Until next time, take care of yourselves and God bless y'all.